Welcome to the Motivation Without the Hype podcast with your host, Jez Perez. He's an author, high-performance coach, and motivational speaker. This show brings you inspiring messages and interviews to unleash your greatness in life and in business. So let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome to Motivation Without the Hype podcast show. My name is Jez Perez, a former procrastinator into an action taker. We bring you inspirational messages and interviews, including motivational insights, tips, principles, and proven strategies that you can take action without the hype in unleashing your greatness in life and in business. Now, we appreciate you plugging in with us and spending time with us. And we have a very special guest, and I'm super grateful to have her on our show. Her name is Tanya. She is a non-diet registered dietitian, nutritionist, Alliance dietitian, and certified integrative mental health professional with decades of experience in healthcare. Take note, decades of experience in health coaching and behavior and lifestyle modification support. She has authored a mindfulness-based journaling book entitled The Mindful Me Journey, a 40-day guided journal toward a healthy relationship with food and exercise, and founded a federally certified WOSB and state certified WBE woman-owned small business. In 2021, LIT Wellness Solution received a Top 50 Healthcare Companies Award for Program Innovation from the International Forum on Advancements in Healthcare, which is IFAH. Guys, super excited. First of all, Tanya, welcome on the show in today's podcast.
Oh, it's great to be here. I'm so glad to speak with your audience.
Yeah. So, please tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, I am a non-diet registered dietitian, as you said, and a certified integrative mental health professional. And my goal and passion is integrating nutrition therapy and mental health to help people end obsessive food and diet thoughts and diet culture behaviors forever. And that comes from my own past experience of having disordered eating that came out of diet culture. And I see the brokenness that people have, and I also know the freedom and the wholeness that comes on the other side.
Wow. So what got you into nutrition? Was it through an experience, or was it through, this is what you really wanted to do? How did the passion come about in terms of health and wellness, particularly nutrition?
Well, I went to college on a volleyball scholarship. I was a 3-sport athlete through junior high and high school, and then focused in on volleyball in college. And I got a full ride scholarship, and started out that I was going to be in chemistry, and learned really early on chemistry was not the area for me. And so got really interested in sports nutrition. And that was really the area that I thought I was going to go into, was sports nutrition. But as I went through my college journey, my coach had given me a playing weight that she wanted me to achieve. And I spent 4 years trying to reach that weight, and developed all kinds of disordered eating in my approach. And so decided that clinical dietetics and nutrition was really the focus more than sports nutrition. So I never even pursued sports nutrition. I really just went with clinical nutrition, and I worked with end-stage organ disease, kidney, liver, and pancreas transplants, and really saw what happens with the sickest of the sick, and how nutrition and intervention and therapy really impacts and really is life-changing. When somebody gets a new organ, it's life-changing. And so I used that experience with the sickest of the sick, and then worked in health coaching with online health and wellness, and saw kind of the healthy of the healthy. Yeah. And what I saw in between all of those things is that everybody's still focused on a weight, a number, a diet, and really only looking at their physical well-being and not looking at the rest of their life. And as I started to unpack really what helps people be successful, what helps people not be unsuccessful with managing their life and their health, it became clear that I needed to put all these different pieces together to try to help people see themselves as a whole person and not just the segmented parts and pieces that diet culture wants them to focus on.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because a lot of people do think or focus on the physicality. However, they don't really focus on the internal. And I think that's really important. Health is your wealth, as cliche as it sounds, but you place a lot of experiences through your whole life and through your journey. What would be the most common thing that people tend to focus on and rather not focus internally. How do you distinguish that, and how do you actually help your clients really focus on the internal?
Well, it's very interesting because they can really just in a few minutes, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, I want to lose 10 pounds or I want to lose 20 pounds. So it all becomes based on being a number. And when you say, well, why do you want to lose 20 pounds? Then the truth comes out that they want to feel better. They want to manage their blood sugar. They want to manage their blood pressure. There's a health component, but they just are trained to believe that if I just lose 20 pounds, then that health component is going to be there. But it's the behaviors that you change that allow you to lose 20 pounds is what actually makes you feel better, look better, feel better all the way around. And so it's the behaviors. It's not the weight. It's not the number on the scale. And so helping people begin to unpack that and understand that it's about my life. It's about how the behaviors that I live fit into that life. It's about if I'm a goal setting person. Some people become obsessed with the goal setting.
Yeah.
They become obsessed and their self-worth becomes tied to that success or failure at reaching a goal. And I know in my own past, I was an athlete who reached some high goals. I've had a high jump record for 4 decades. So, I mean, I've reached some good goals, but you can become obsessed and define your well-being and define yourself by the goal that you set and reach. And not what you've learned in the journey along the way, not what you've learned about yourself in the process.
Yeah. So how do you change those behaviors, and what are those triggers? Because, not many people tend to think about their own behaviors. They think about the number, they think about the goal, or they think about physicality. But I love how you put that in perspective about, it is the behaviors. How does one identify the behaviors? And number two, how do they change their certain, habits or behaviors into good habits and behaviors? Like, how do they shift that?
Well, again, it goes back to what is it I'm trying to do? My biggest thing is what, why, and how. So what am I trying to change? Why am I trying to change it? And then how am I going about it? And if I start with the how first, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. Well, you've started with the end instead of starting with the beginning.
Ooh, yeah.
The what needs to change? What is wrong? What is the issue? So let's just use blood pressure as a prime example.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have blood pressure that they're trying to manage. And what we hear is diet and exercise. Manage your blood pressure with diet and exercise.
Yep.
Okay, that's again focusing on the physical well-being side of your life. But stress affects your blood pressure. And if you have stress coming from your relationships or your inability to have social anxiety, or your finances are out of whack, and so you're stressed about your finances, whatever you're trying to do with your diet and exercise, if you're not managing your life and managing the stress, you're undoing everything about what you're doing with what you eat and how you exercise.
Wow.
And so it's beginning to look at your life as a whole person and not the segmented parts that I'm only focusing. And I don't know how it is over there, but over here, when you go to the doctor, pretty much you're reduced to your physical well-being. They're not asking you about how you're managing stress. They're not asking you about your financial wellness. They're not asking you about your spiritual wellness. They're not talking about any of those aspects. They're asking you what's your weight, what's your blood pressure, when was the last time you lost 20 pounds? And again, it's all on your physical well-being. Well, when you start to look at yourself as a whole person, and you start to recognize that what I put in my mouth sometimes is dependent upon the emotions and the thoughts and the feelings. For me, if I have a bag of chips and I sit down with the bag of chips and I'm emotionally charged, I'm going to mindlessly sit there and eat out of the bag, right? It's affecting my physical well-being, but it's the emotional trigger that I have to deal with first. So when we go back to that what, why, and how, I have to understand what's wrong and what needs to change. Why is it wrong and why does it need to change? And then I can focus on the how. Maybe it's weight loss, but maybe it has nothing to do with weight loss. Maybe the how is, for me, I have to put a guardrail in place that says I'm not going to ever eat out of a bag because I know that that's a trigger where I'm just going to mindlessly eat. So my
Yeah.
guardrail that I have to put in place is to take a portion out of the bag, put it on a plate, sit at a table, et cetera, et cetera.
There's a lot of truth in just what you just mentioned. There's just a lot, and I think a lot of people focus on the outward appearance, and there's a lot more that needs to be unpacked from within.
Right.
We talk about stress management, we talk about emotions and triggers and behaviors. There's a lot to it, and a lot of people tend to focus on the outward appearance. So, why is it important to really focus on the person inside? Why is it?
Well, again, we go back to that. We're multidimensional beings. We're not just
Yeah.
a physical body. We are a multidimensional being. And emotional and mental well-being have huge influences on feelings and thoughts. And those
Yeah.
feelings and thoughts trigger or contribute to the behaviors that we carry out, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes our behaviors are cognitive thoughts,
Okay.
but a lot of times they're reactive habits. And when we're triggered, we go to the reactive habit that we know and that we've developed. And sometimes those reactive habits, and I'll give you a prime example. I grew up in a generation of the Clean Plate Club. There were starving children all over the world, and we were taught over here in the States that you clean your plate. You don't waste food. Okay, well, I learned that as a 5 and 6 and 7-year-old. I still have a very, very hard time, even if I'm full, leaving something on the plate.
Yeah.
Because it's not enough for a leftover for a whole meal, but I'm really full. But I have this guilt that comes from my childhood from leaving things on the plate. So that's just one example of where there are things that are come from our past that we have to be able to be cognitive about and say, okay, well, I'm just eating this because the rule is that you have to clean your plate, because that was a rule that you had as a child. So you have to think back to those triggers and those experiences in your life, and how do they play into the choices and the behaviors that you're making? And are you making a cognitive decision, or are you stuck in habits of just reaction?
Wow.
And all of them fit together. One of my other examples that I like to use is I have known people who they pay for the trainer, they pay for all the diet food and all the special foods and the powders and the protein powders and the mixes. They pay for the gym membership. They pay for the clothes that you need to wear, right? But they can't pay their bills. But they have put themselves in a financial stress
Yeah.
to meet a
That's true.
goal of losing 10 pounds or 20 pounds or better fitness. And it's, well, my health depends on it. Again, go back to that stress. The stress that you're inducing in not being able to pay your bills because your money is not managed well is not contributing to your physical well-being.
There's a lot of truth in that, because a lot of people do put a lot of stress in their finances. They spend so much
Right.
money, and they're not able to even control themselves in terms of, so they go in a phase and they have this great feeling, but they don't realize, there's going to be a lot of challenges along the way. Just in this segment alone, there's a lot of nuggets, and those who are listening, those podcast listeners through audio and video, you got to rewind, because there's just a lot of nuggets and wisdom, because there's a lot of truth that's being unpacked, and I'm seeing it front hand. So thank you so much, Tanya. That's bomb. That's awesome. So I wanted to ask you, what is the difference between diet culture and wellness culture? I know that you mentioned a bit of the wellness. What are the differences?
Well, diet culture is what we have known for the last 3 decades. And really, diet culture is what sells products, sells services. It's focused on appearance. It's focused on outward appearance. It's based on the newest eating plan or fitness plan with a goal of losing weight or improving fitness. And there's nothing wrong with those things. But again, what, why, and how? We have to go back to,
Yeah, I know
to
that's
that. So justifying eating based on the workout that you've done. So it's, I've earned it. I've earned eating this treat because, or I'm going to have a cheat day. All of those things are rules based, right? It's not based on how do I feel, whether I'm hungry or full. It's based on some rules that have been set up. So that's a diet culture kind of mentality. There's a constant mental thought cycle that goes. It's calculating a food, or it's calculating of a fitness plan, or it's a calculation of, so it's, I measured up to something. And then there's guilt and shame and self-hatred that can come along with it if I don't meet that goal, right?
Yeah.
So it's not the goal is in and of itself, go back to what, why, and how. It's not the goal of being healthy that's the problem, but it's the idea that the fitness plan or the eating plan is the way to do it. It's the how. Well, no, maybe not, right? Not if it brings guilt, not if it brings shame. So when you tie self-worth to the weight on the scale, you're avoiding the whole idea of health at every size. So that's where a culture of wellness goes into health at every size.
Wow.
Any body size or shape can be healthy and well and whole as a whole person. And it doesn't matter what that scale says, because there are other biometrics to be considered. There are other things. If weight and BMI are the only things you look at, and BMI, I think you should just ignore BMI, throw it out the window, and never pay attention to it again. Because that's one of the things that, again, why medical community ever adopted that is beyond me, because a bodybuilder who has no body fat is going to come up as obese. I mean, it's just the stupidest thing. Anyway, so take that number even off of your radar in terms of any kind of health indicator. You want to be looking at a lot of other numbers: glucose, A1C, blood pressure, lipid profile, waist circumference. When was the last time you measured your waist? What's your waist circumference? You probably don't even know, because that's not anything anybody's paying attention to. But that can tell you a lot. It doesn't tell you health, but it tells you risk. People who have more body fat in their midsection have a higher risk of some of certain medical conditions. Now, that's a body type thing. You can't change your body type. But you can be aware that my waist circumference has gone up an inch or has gone down a half inch. And that's a better parameter of improvement of risk for health.
Right.
Bone mass, muscle mass, those are more important numbers than a BMI, right? Because those are health focused. They're not body weight focused.
Yeah.
So really the biggest difference is that a diet culture focuses on health and physical well-being pretty much only. That's their definition, is physical well-being. A culture of wellness looks at all areas of your life, all dimensions of your life. It's a balanced, whole living approach. And what I can tell you is, whether you come work with me, and I will help you find out exactly why you can't lose those 5 pounds that you've been trying to lose forever and ever. Because it has to do with the whole rest of your life that you're ignoring. That's why you can't meet those goals. Because you're only looking at one dimension of yourself and your life and your body, instead of looking at your whole life and being culturally well in every aspect of how you work, how you play, how you live, how you interact with other people, the dynamics in your work life, your family life, your financial life, your spiritual life. If you think you can ignore all those things and be healthy and whole, you're fooling yourself.
Yeah.
But that's what a diet culture sells you, is that you'll be happy if you just lose 10 pounds. You'll be happy if your body just looks like somebody else's. Instead of learning to love the body you have and being the healthiest in the body you were given. Because we weren't all given the same body type. We
That's
were all
right.
given different genetics.
Yes.
And some of us are tall and some of us are small. And one of my best examples is, look at an Olympic gymnast and look at an Olympic basketball player. They have totally different body types,
Yeah.
but they are both successful in the body types that they have. So your goal is to be your healthiest, best, and most successful in the body you were given,
Come
not
on.
trying to succeed to be somebody else's body, right?
Yeah. Oh wow, I'm cheering right now because a lot of people tend to focus on the diet culture. It's so true. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my own life. Yeah, like have there's so many instances where people just gravitated to this diet culture. However, they're not focused on this wellness. And I'm a true believer. Like we need to have that type of balance. Love, health, wealth, and happiness, and your spiritual life, which is the
Yep.
pillars of life. And people just focus on one aspect, but not realizing they're stressful in their finances, and it's just a mix. And like I love the body types. We just need to be comfortable in our own skin, but be aware of the risk. The body mass, and to remove this BMI, because I know that people, those who are listeners, I know you're thinking about this BMI. Chuck that out of the door. I know people are just grounded with this weight scale, and they associate with depression and anxiety, and that's why people give up. They just throw in the towel because they associate themselves with this diet culture, and they can't live up to that standards, not realizing it's the wellness factor of all these other aspects, guys. We're gonna have these. We have a lot of these links in the show notes that you can get in touch with Tanya. So please, guys, look into it, digest it. I'm telling you right now, these are just a lot of truths and insights. And if you just apply one of these insights, it's going to change your life and get connected right now as you speak, as you listen to this podcast. So for someone who's actually struggling, what would be the steps for them to break away from diet culture and to really love themselves from the inside out?
Well, the first thing is to understand that there is a diet culture, because that might be a new concept that they really hadn't even thought about before. That, oh my gosh, they're trying to sell me something, a new pill, a
Right?
new
Yeah.
potion, a new word. So really being able to step back and say, okay, what are they trying to do? And the other thing that I'll tell you is if you're watching a commercial, okay, I want you to really watch a commercial, okay, because here's the key. The person that they're going to show you at the beginning, where they're establishing the problem, is going to be an endomorphic body type, that rounder body type. And
Yeah.
usually it's someone who's older, probably in their 50s. So it's going to be an endomorphic body type. And then as they're telling you about their product or service, they're going to shift to someone who's a mesomorphic body type, who's very fit and very toned. And that's going to give you this
Tricky.
whole illusion that if
Yeah.
I just use their product or service, I'm going to look like that. And okay, it's very effective in selling things, but the
Yeah.
reality is you use their product or service and you get to the end of it and you don't look like that
Correct.
because you're not a mesomorph. You don't have that body type, right? I'm an endomesomorph. I am never going to look. I was very strong, could lift very much weight in college, but you could not see a six pack on me because I carried my weight in my midsection. So
Yeah.
I had really defined legs, but you couldn't see the six pack that I had because I used to say I had a soft sided cooler.
Yeah.
So, you know, so
Wow.
I'm that you have to understand your body type. So
Yeah.
one exercise people can do is they can stand in a mirror totally naked. Now I know that for a lot of people, especially women, that is a very scary idea. Well, first step is get comfortable with that idea. And then instead of looking and finding the things you don't like, find three things you do like. I like the color of my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I like the long limbs that I have. I like the definition that I see in my legs. I'll just give three. The next day, reaffirm those same three and find one more. And then reaffirm those four the next day and see what else you can find. We are so focused on the being critical and the comparison and comparing ourselves with somebody else's body that we can't even look at ourselves and be objective about what we have. So one of my things, and I'll be very transparent, is I was barely an A cup when I was in college. And when you're playing volleyball and you're rolling on the floor, that's an okay thing. But when you're a pregnant mom to be who wants to breastfeed her children,
Mm-hmm.
it's an insecurity thing. But being able to now look 30 years later and say, but my body was able to do what I ask of it to do, and being proud of that, and being content in that. Instead of comparing ourselves with somebody else, let's get to know our own body. Let's get to know what's good and sound and whole. But you have to know what your body type is. So my free gift that they'll have a link to, figure out what your body type is. Know what those body type strengths and weaknesses are. Are you the gymnast or are you the basketball player? And then be the healthiest person in that body type that you have. Stop trying to be somebody else's body type. Be the healthiest you in the body you were given. And you can do that. That's what health at every size is all about. There are healthy people who are on the larger size body type. You can be that person. I personally was at my most unhealthy in my smallest adult body because of disordered eating. So I know that people, bodybuilders, they're not always the healthiest when they're up there on the stand.
Right. Yeah.
You
I
know?
Yeah.
So you have to start to look and say, okay, what is my real definition of what's healthy? And begin to change that mind shift. And it is a mind shift. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's that what, why, and how. You have to go back to that.
Yeah.
The other thing I will say is you have to understand, what are your triggers? What are you doing with food and why are you doing it? What are the emotions, the feelings, the upbringing things, the clean plate club? You got to begin to examine those. You got to understand what's going on. You can't really change it and break free from it if you don't know what you're doing, why you're doing it. So that is the foundation.
Wow. Guys, all the links are provided on the show notes. Really get in touch with Tanya, and she's provided some free gifts. Guys, take this opportunity. It's amazing. I'm telling you right now, this is just freshness coming through experience, but there are people right now that are experiencing some challenges in this diet culture. Even for me, it's like, wow. And, they associate this diet culture with depression. And I think people don't love themselves enough to really accept and be comfortable in their own skin. And they have this comparison. I love this marketing, they put themselves in the endomorph, and then it's realizing it's a mesomorph, and not understanding the body types. And I think that's really important to have that level of awareness. So thank you, Tanya. That's mind-blowing. It's just amazing just with this segment alone. And wow, a lot of value. Look, I always ask this question to every guest that's on the show. What is your meaning of motivation without the hype? And how do you use motivation for your personal success?
Well, for me, making cognitive choices instead of following reactive habits, as an athlete and even as a parent and as a professional business owner, you have to set goals, but they have to be realistic goals. And it can't be based on somebody else's success. It can't be based on somebody else's hype or somebody else's, gifts and talents. What do I bring to the table? What can I do? And what, why, and how can I make changes in my life to be able to be successful at that? And if I can be clear and honest with myself and others of who I am, whose I am, what I do, why I do it, how I do it, I can reach anything. I can achieve anything. But I got to be honest. I got to be honest and fair with who I am, what I am, and be able to just live the best whole life that I can, healthy and whole.
Awesome. Virtual high fives. That is amazing. Thank you so much, Tanya. It's been awesome. Guys, you really got to listen to this again and again, because I'm going to go back to this. I'm like, oh, wow, there's just so many things. The reason why I'm saying this is because there's a lot of truth, and I've done so many podcast episodes, also tailoring around with health, but this is a different type of perspective, and I love the differences between diet culture and wellness culture. So guys, for more information, how you get in touch with Tanya, please look at the show notes. It's on the provided links. And by the way, on the links, you can learn about what she does. It's called litwellnesssolutions.com. Don't forget, there is a free giveaway. So please go to the link right now and click on it. And also there is mindful eating coaching. Click that as well. And I'm telling you right now, it's going to change your life. So if this episode has been helpful and uplifting, we would love for you to write a review to inspire more listeners to get plugged in. We will continue to provide high value content in each and every episode. Now, if you don't mind sharing this podcast show on social media by inviting others, it would mean the world to me. Every time you tag me or tag us, we will get the opportunity to share those posts, and together we can make a difference in the lives of others through inspirational episodes just like this. So there you have it. In closing, continue to unleash your greatness and tell yourself that I can, I will, and I must, and we'll see you on the next episode.